My name is Erica Marie Morris, and you are listening to the Candle Business Podcast, where we talk all things about starting, running, and growing a successful candle business. From marketing to mental health, I cover a wide range of real-life topics that involve the crazy and wonderful ups and downs that is being a small business owner. Thank you so much for joining me in today's podcast episode, and it is a very special one because it's the first time I've ever had a guest on. We actually have a guest for today's podcast episode, and you will be meeting her very shortly. Her name is Dianna, and she has her own candle brand called TERRA, and she is also the owner of the inventory software Inventora. She has been somebody that I've been wanting to interview for quite some time now because, in my personal opinion, she is a branding and marketing expert. I think she is absolutely phenomenal at what she does. She's very successful, and I just think she is great, and I wanted to pick her brain on this topic. And if you are looking for specific questions or timestamps for this video, I will have it down in the pinned comment down below. And then also in the pinned comment, if you are somebody that is brand new to the podcast or to my channel, and you are somebody who is wanting to get started with your own candle business, I do have a candle business launch checklist. This is a free download when you sign up for the email list. So you can go to ericamarieMorris.com/checklist or click on the link in the pinned comment section below. But I am very, very excited to get into today's episode where you will get to hear more about Dianna, her story, and her tips on branding and marketing. And I'm just very excited. So I really hope you enjoy today's podcast episode. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Welcome, Dianna, to the Candle Business Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. First person I've ever interviewed on this channel before on this podcast. So I'm super excited that you are here. If you could let my audience know who you are, what you do, everything about you, just a little introduction in case anybody doesn't know who you are.
Of course. And also thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited to just talk with you today. So for those who don't know me, my name is Dianna, and I'm the founder of TERRA, a candle company. I'm based in St. Louis, Missouri. And I guess this is a little side fun fact, but I'm also the co-founder of Inventora. I feel like the people listening to this probably have heard of that, so I want to throw that in there. And yeah, I've been running my business since TERRA since 2019. So it's been really cool to see how it's grown over the years.
What is your anniversary to your business? When did you start?
So I always think this is so funny because I'm just like, why did I do this? Because it's on December 23rd, 2019. And the reason why I'm like, why did I do this is because everyone's done holiday shopping. Everyone's just hanging out at home with their family. But that's also why I did it, is because I was hanging out at home with my mom and I just had so much free time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's funny too, because I think that's interesting because in my opinion, you have a really successful candle business, and that's good to know that you didn't think like, okay, I have to start at like the perfect time or else it's not going to be successful. Like I have to wait. Like I think a lot of people think that they may have to wait until, I don't know, to launch in September. Like I think maybe people are thinking that September would be like the perfect month because it's right before holiday season. But really, you can launch anytime. I mean, our 4-year anniversary is coming up March 30th. That was like right after the pandemic hit. It was like we were all in lockdown. It was still like during the 2 weeks, and I'm like, I don't know if I should launch, but I'm gonna launch.
Right, exactly.
So that's really good to know. Also, I wanted to throw this out there in case anybody didn't know. Both me and Dianna are new moms, and we actually found out that we are both pregnant within like very, very fast after we both found out. So
I would honestly think just days. Like, yeah, I felt like we were. I don't know how it all unfolded now. Like it feels like a blur now thinking about it, but I know it was within like a week almost, it felt like.
Yep, it was. And our due dates were exactly a week apart. So whenever it was like that Tuesday, then we were both like the next week. So we have been really close since then. And then of course our boys
were supposed to be around the same age. Mine decided to come a little bit sooner, but now they're still relatively really, really close in age. So what I want to ask you, because I know how I feel about all this, and guys, we will get into past motherhood stuff, but it's a huge part of our life now. So I did want to mention it. And I know that there are a lot of moms and parents that also watch my channel too. I just want to know, how's it going? How have you fit, being a new mom, having a young baby, and having that fit into your business and your day-to-day life?
Well, I always think about how when I found out I was pregnant, and you and I, we both found out very, very early. So I like to say we almost had like the full 9 months to prepare. And being in that moment, I was like, oh, I have a lot of time. Like, we'll be golden in business by the time little Jackson comes into my life. And like, I'll just be able to coast business and motherhood and all these things. Like, I really thought I had everything planned out. And, they always say motherhood, you just prepare for the unexpected. Like, no matter what, your plans get thrown out the window.
Yeah.
And that couldn't have been more true come literally the first week of being a mother. And it's all for the great reasons. And I love it. And I never will ever change anything about it. But yeah, so just starting with pregnancy, just thinking that's where my mind was, knowing like, oh, I'll be prepared. And then literally the day Jackson's born and trying to figure out and navigate, okay, how do I actually do motherhood and run a business at the same time? And ever since then, which was about almost 6 months ago now, I have been constantly navigating day by day. Like, I can't even plan 2 days in advance anymore, it feels like. I just literally wake up, look at what needs to be done, and just try to balance it with Jackson's needs. And that's just how I approach everything right now. And I'm very thankful that I do have a lot of help and support in my business and in my family. So I feel like I'm able to get more than what I thought was able to be accomplished early on into being a mother. And of course, every month gets a little bit better. And I feel like, one week I'm like, okay, I figured out how to balance this while doing this. But then the next week, little Jackson has a sleep regression or he doesn't want to take naps anymore. And, you just kind of have to start over. But, you eventually get there. And it's really, really challenging and it's frustrating. And it's really hard running a business at the same time, but you just make it work. And that's just my mindset with it every day. And I think knowing that it's challenging and that's probably never going to change is what keeps me finding the balance and the time, because I'm not like dwelling on the fact, oh, I can never get anything done. I just see it as, well, here's my free time. So I know I need to tackle these tasks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are their own special challenges no matter what. Like, I think that looking at the picture of becoming a mom, like, there's always going to be a sacrifice somewhere, and everybody has their own sacrifice. And you could look at our situation and be like, wow, like, you're working, like, you get to work from home and you basically get to be a stay-at-home mom, like, be around your baby all the time. But man, is it hard? Like, it's really hard, because it's not like, okay, baby goes down for a nap. Now, like, oh, I can just, do the laundry or get the dishes done, or like, or even relax or go, like, my mind is like, okay, I need to respond to that email. I need to go on and make sure that my like, there's different like work things that I'm thinking of, plus the added on laundry and dishes and cooking and all that kind of stuff.
And that's not even baby. Like, that's literally just during his one little nap.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And sometimes it's like 30 minutes. I didn't know how fast 30 minutes could go. 30 minutes goes by so fast. And I'm like, really? It's done? Okay.
Like, I have to resume life now.
Yeah. But it's definitely helped me, I think, like, and this may be something that you also may potentially feel as well. Because I feel like we may be similar in the sense that, like, we are working constantly every single day. Like, if we could, we'd literally be working from like sun up to sundown. And having a baby really made me like stop and like, I have to take a break. a break, from work and then go into mom work mode, which is a different kind of work. And it kind of really made me just be like, you know what? I can go outside and go on a walk and, or like just, I can't wait till I can take him to the park. And just, it's going to be such a nice, like, just slow down a little bit because I feel like I'm constantly go, 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 go with like everything. So it's been nice to like slow down a little bit in that regard.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because, well, my personality, I have always loved being outside. I've loved nature. I love going places. But I love working so much. Honestly, like you said, I would work all day long and I wouldn't even think about it. Like I would be working on TERRA from literally the second I wake up until it's dinner time. And that would just be a normal day of life for me before, I became a mother. But now I just really appreciate the time, the free time I have. And with the weather, I mean, I know you're in California, so maybe your weather is not the same situation, but for us, we're like finally getting out of winter. And, it's been like 30 degrees every day for a while, but I look around today and it's so sunny. It's so beautiful. And earlier I took Jackson on a walk and it's just like little things like that where I'm like, this is just so nice. And in a weird way, I guess I'm growing other areas in my life and doing the things being a mother. I'm wording this so weird. I feel like being a mother is helping me grow in different areas of my life as well.
Yeah.
Because when I'm taking Jackson on a walk, I'm walking around my neighborhood. I'm interacting with my neighbors. And it's like all these things I wouldn't have done normally. And then all of a sudden, I just feel like my life is a bit more, I don't know, I feel like my circle's growing and my life just feels more whole.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, I made dinner for our neighbor because she recently had a baby a month ago and she brought us a postpartum meal. So we went over there and hung out and I got to hold her little 1 month old. And it's like, we don't typically do that. Like Chris is way better because he's usually in the garage and he'll kind of interact a lot more with the neighbors. But I think that becoming a mom, it just kind of opens up to like, you automatically have something in common. It automatically brings that you have something in common with somebody else. So I totally get what you mean. So let's go ahead and dive into some of these questions that I have. So first and foremost, why did you start a candle business? Like why candles? What made you get into it? I know that you have a big connection between your love of traveling and how you kind of started your brand and your brand story and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to dive into that part of your business.
Yes. And I love sharing the story of it all because, I mean, it is where it all began anyways. But there is a very, very long-winded version of this, and I'm going to try not to get too into that, especially since we were just talking about being mothers, and we know both of our boys are currently in a nap, which we know is going to end.
Yes.
But basically, we'll just do the clip notes of how we got here. Back in, I want to say 2013, so quite a while ago, almost 10 years ago. I was just really creative. At that time, I was learning how to make bath bombs. And like, I just made bath bombs just for fun. For me, I gave it to one of my neighbors. I used to work at a salon. I would make the bath bombs for the people at my salon. And through that creative process, I discovered candle making. But the thing is, I didn't actually ever make candles. I just kind of saw it in the foreground of like, when you order supplies for bath bombs, there's like fragrance oils, there's like candle wax, all those things. And I thought, oh, well, if I can make bath bombs, maybe one day I can make candles. And it kind of just sat with me that maybe one day I'll make candles. And next thing I know, a year passes, another year passes, another year passes, and I still haven't touched the candle making world. But then I go into what I like to call my little quarter life crisis. And I'm like, you know what? I don't really want to do anything I'm currently doing in life. And I don't know. Thinking back, it was the greatest decision I could have ever made for myself. But in the moment, you're probably like, what is this girl doing? Because I sold my car, I cut my apartment lease, I saved as much money as I could, sold all my furniture, and I was like, bye guys. I just want to travel for a little bit. I just want to see how far the money I saved takes me.
Were you like early mid 20s at that point?
I was 24, I want to say. I want to say I just turned 24. So doing that, I, take my savings that I saved for literally just like 6 months. Like it was nothing, just that and whatever I got from what I sold. Ended up going all over Southeast Asia, spent a lot of time in Europe. And next thing I know, I picked up graphic design. I was freelancing while I was away, and I found myself in the product packaging world. And it's funny that you want to talk about branding today because I felt like I had no experience in this to start. But as I was freelancing, I was gaining clients who wanted me to design their product packaging. And through that, I learned all about branding and storytelling and just overall design and aesthetics of a product. And fast forward a few years, I find my way back home. So I'm 27 years old now, and I'm back home for the holidays. Speaking of whenever I started, TERRA was, around Christmas time. So I'm sitting there with all the time in the world now because I'm not, when you're traveling, you kind of want to be out doing things all day long and seeing things. But I was at home with my mom in the middle of nowhere, Missouri. So, and it's winter time. So I was just sitting on the couch thinking about, okay, I have clients that I'm designing their packaging for, and I really love doing this, but I also really love doing this if it were something of my own. And that's when candles kind of came back into the picture because I knew at that point I may have been done traveling. I mean, at least to the extent I was doing it at that point. And I had this idea of basically encompassing my memories of the past 3 years into candle scents. And that's really where the idea of TERRA all began is I said, okay, let me just, pick some fragrance notes that remind me of Thailand and like bamboo, coconut, water, things like that. And let me just try to recreate it in a candle. So that way I could have that little, that little memory of my travels here with me. And that's where it just really all started. And I remember I think I discovered candle science pretty early on, and I got some samples, some wax, whipped it together. Next thing I know, my mom comes home from work and she literally busts open the door. And I don't know if it was just me exaggerating that moment because it was a very life-changing moment for me, or if she actually did bust open that door. But she walks in and I can verbally hear her inhaling and she just tells me, wow, it smells so good in here. It smells so good in this house. And I said, you know what? That's all I need to know. I'm going to start a business. Now that I know how to make a candle, I'm going to start a business. And the thing is, I didn't even test the candle at that point. I had just mixed the fragrance oil and the wax and poured it.
I didn't know anything about testing when I made my first candles.
But yeah, that was the start of it. So
I love that.
Long-winded, but yeah.
Now, because I love how you have, like your brand story is very clear, but in terms of marketing and your success up until this point, how much do you think that your brand story has played into that? Like, do you think that that is like the encompassing of TERRA and like what TERRA is, of like how you've been able to connect your love of traveling and the places that you've been to? Like, for instance, do you think that having your storytelling and having your brand story, because I do like to talk about that a lot on my channel, because I think that brand story is like huge, especially for small businesses, because it's the difference between, bringing up, posting a picture of a product and being like, this is my lavender candle, like link in bio, that versus like you're telling a story of like why you created that candle, why you chose the notes, like the story behind it. How much do you think that that has come into play when it comes to gaining a customer base and all that kind of stuff that you've experienced over the last few years?
I think for me, there is a two-part answer to this. Mm-hmm. The first part is 100% yes. my storytelling of my brand is what attracts my customer. I will say what finalizes them, or I guess what convinces them to become a customer. Like that's the attraction part, but to finalize the transaction is the overall appeal. I
Packaging, the
do
way
think,
it looks, right? Like
yeah, I do
it
think
all kind of
having,
coincides together.
yes, I think
Mhm.
having the aesthetic match your storytelling, um, it just all has to come full circle. You can attract people to your brand through words, but if the overall product doesn't fit what you are selling, what you're saying, then they're never going to cross that customer line, you know?
Yeah, no, you explained that so perfectly, and I agree wholeheartedly because there is that balance between, yes, you need to have storytelling, and what I try to tell people is that it doesn't necessarily, like, your storytelling, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a situation like you, to where, like, I've never traveled, like I don't have that. Yes, I have the stories, and all of the scents in the nostalgia collection are based on memories and stuff like that. But a lot of my storytelling that I do is just, a lot of people will find and want to purchase because they like just me sharing about life, and we share about our family. And even on YouTube, I had no idea when I first got started with it that like that is a part of the whole story of like our brand and getting going. And once you realize that it doesn't have to be this, like, I tell people when I make marketing videos, because I thought for the longest time like marketing had to be like uh, Facebook, ads and analytics and KPIs and all these very structured things. And with handmade businesses, like, I guess I could ask you, like, what do you like? What is marketing to you? Like, what do you do that's like, yes, this is marketing? Like, where's your focus when it comes to marketing? And this could have been in the beginning or what you do now, and kind of, how you've evolved, or where you put your focus in order to acquire your customers.
Yeah, I would honestly love to share my journey of marketing because
Mm-hmm.
starting Terra, I didn't know what I was doing. And I was really just, I was focusing on the things I thought would make progress or be very, very effective, with how little funds I had, basically, because that's another key point to my business that I think I should be clear about. When I started Terra, I only gave myself $100 to start the business. And that was purely just to figure out how to make the candle. That's what I spent that on, and a domain,
Mm-hmm.
website name. Like that's it. And so when it came to marketing in the beginning, I knew I couldn't spend money on ads. I knew I couldn't hire a brand photographer. I couldn't do all these things that you see a lot of people doing today, or a lot of people think they need in the beginning. And what I did instead was I told myself, one, I didn't know anything about social media. I never had a following to begin with. When I started Terra, I had me and maybe like two of my friends. Like that was it. Um, so my first task that I gave myself, I think this was just a week after I decided, okay, my business name is Terra. Here's my Instagram handle that I'm going to make sure I just save. And I told myself, okay, let's figure out Instagram. Let's spend the next week and try to get 100 followers. Let's just crack the code to what works. And I spent all of my free time in 1 week just trying to get more and more followers every day. And what I did was I focused on my local city because I felt that with me not having a community to start with, having my local city just felt accessible. It felt like a space I could easily integrate with being a
Do you,
new business.
do you also feel like it's like, for instance, if somebody follows you on Instagram and you click on their profile and you look, and they're across the country from you, and you're like, okay. But if you look and they live in the same city, you're like, oh, we live in the same city. It kind of brings out that commonality again, to where it kind of almost makes that person think twice and maybe follow you back, like a higher probability of following you back because you're in the same community.
Yes, absolutely. And I made sure too that even though my Instagram was brand new and I might not at that point, I don't even know if I had products ready to sell because like I said, I didn't test anything. I just kind of whipped together the groundwork of everything. Um, and I just made sure I had a few images on social media. And if I'm being honest, my first ever product photo, I say that with air quotes, was because it was just a mock-up from Photoshop that I want to say I just found like a free image that I just like slapped a label on
Mhm.
because I was like, oh, well, it looks like the candle I'm going to sell, and that is my label.
Yeah.
That was one of like the images I had on social media in the very beginning. And, you know, I had like a photo of me. Like I was really in tune with sharing my story early on. And I think that content plus targeting my city really, you know, started the attraction for people to actually want to follow my account and be like, oh, well, what is she creating? What is this business going to be? This is, you know, this is just intriguing. I want to find out more. And so that was what I spent the first week doing, was just kind of like building just like my very, very near community.
And
And
this was before like crazy Instagram aesthetics, right? This was
yes,
before like Instagram became like you have to have like some sort of aesthetic going on and all that kind of stuff. Um, and you were just kind of taking like Photoshop or maybe just like taking pictures on your phone at one point and just, you know, did you even have were you even selling or were you just gaining a following before you were selling?
I was taking pre-order.
Okay.
Which is
Okay.
like,
I
it's
love it.
like
I love
so
it.
funny to like say that out loud because I honestly, like, I didn't know what I was doing. You know, I mean, in a way, I was making the right moves. Like I said, I was taking calculated steps because I didn't have the funds to like get going. And accepting pre-orders was a big reason. Um, or like I did that very intentionally because the pre-orders finances that came in was what supplied me being able to buy supplies and materials to send out those orders. So it was everything was very gradual and it all depended on what my next steps were to be able to bring that into my business.
It almost kind of sounds like you were also, gosh, what's that term? I'm going to use this, but I don't know if that's the right term. You were almost like verifying the market before you started like making 100 candles. Like you didn't like make a ton of candles and then find your customer base. You kind of were seeing what worked and what customers liked. And then you were kind of taking
Yes.
pre-orders based on what you were creating and then created it for them based on the money that you were intaking and then creating the
Yes.
products from that.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And at that point, I will say I did go through a testing process. So,
I know that's the whole thing. I was gonna say I'm like but I swear like, and I know there's people that you know they'll go like 3 years without selling because they want to have like the absolute perfect testing. For me, like I did 6 months, and even when I launched my products, like I still remember thinking like, oh, like it was like 6 months later, and I was like, oh, I probably should have waited because it wasn't like exactly like how I probably should have been wicking everything, and then I've just kind of adjusted over time.
yes, yes,
But
definitely.
yeah,
That's a very good point. And I think that should be said more often is even though I tested early on and I said, okay, these are worthy of selling now, I did go back and retest maybe a couple months after. And even then, I've retested constantly, just constantly I'm retesting just to make sure everything is like up to par. And as new wicks and different materials get released, I just want to make sure everything is still the best it can be.
yeah, no, absolutely. I love hearing I didn't know that. So I'm learning all this for the first time. I
I
didn't
was
know that's how you
very
got
like,
started. That's
yeah.
fantastic. Honestly, like, and that was gonna be one of my questions is like, what do you think? Like, if somebody's starting from scratch and they don't know, they want to get their first sale, like, how do they go about it? You know, in your opinion, what do you think like should be the first steps in somebody wanting to get their first sale?
So for me, and I mean, this is based off of my experience and just looking back, anything I would change, I would say just share all the behind the scenes you can, because that was another appeal for people when they followed my Instagram is they wanted to just know the nitty gritty about what I was doing. Cause it's one thing to post photos and like have your finished product, but that doesn't really capture people's attention as well. Like that's just like going to Target and walking down an aisle and just seeing everything around you. But what convinces you to actually buy? And for me, that was sharing the behind the scenes. So every day on my Instagram story, it doesn't matter what I was doing. I was like posting endlessly. I was like, okay, I'm pouring candles. If I wasn't pouring candles or even making candles or even anything to do with the candle making process, I was showing, okay, here's me working on my website. Here's me working on figuring out marketing. And I was just very, very honest and even vulnerable about where I was in my business, because there are even times where I said, I don't know what I'm doing on Instagram, but I'm going to figure it out. Like I'm just going to see what happens. And I was very, very open to just talking to people. And in a weird way, as ironic as this is, I was wanting to use social media to be social and interact with people and actually have conversations. And I think that is probably the most important thing you can do to get your very first sale. You don't have to think of it as marketing, but you have to think of it as who's going to know your product exists if you don't talk about it. And like, you just have to be very relentless in talking about it. Otherwise, nobody will know.
And that's something that I'm actually working on right now because, when I first got started with it, I would always talk about the stories behind things and be sharing all that. And then as time went on, I was like, man, I really need it because there's people following me, new people all the time. Like you always have to remember there's constantly new people. And then you're also kind of because people don't invest into your business as much as you invest into your business. As many times have you heard your own brand story and heard your own how you got there and all that kind of stuff. Not everybody does, or even if they did hear about it a couple of years ago, they forget. So it's like I always try to remind myself to like reiterate and really because I wanted, and it seems like you as well have wanted to be the face of your brand and really be connected with your brand. And you've probably found this too, but I found that people really enjoy purchasing from other people and getting to know the person behind, like the maker behind the product, and supporting you as an individual as well alongside your product. So I kind of like to look at it as like your storytelling, you as a person, you're selling your product, and then what keeps the customer coming back is a blend of your customer service and how good your product is. Like,
yes.
You could have the best personality, the best, storytelling, but if your product is not up to par, then you're not going to get a very high return customer base.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a harsh reality for those who are a bit on the more shy side. It's honestly just a skill you have to learn if you want to be the face of your business. That's just the most quick success I've been able to see is by, showcasing myself as the business owner. And I know for a fact you can have a successful business without being the face of it. But I feel like it's a benefit if you're able to do that.
Yes, no, I agree. And there are ways that you can be the face of your business, but not always show your face.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can still show yourself making the product, different angles. You can still, I love to write, I love Instagram stories are the best thing that ever happened. I swear it's like the best thing. If you are constantly posting on your stories, you're still going to stay up. Like people are going to click on it. And then you're going to be recommended constantly versus like the post. Sometimes I feel like can kind of get lost a little bit.
Yeah.
So do you find that stories do better for you than feed posts, or what is your experience with those?
I've gone back and forth on this so many times. But where I'm at right now, okay, I shouldn't say where I'm at right now because where I'm at right now is more stable and I've built my audience. So I want to take a few steps back or see it in two different perspectives. When starting out, I think feed posts and a combination of story posts are key because you just want to make yourself visible in as many places as possible. And I would even suggest, if you have the time, if you have the means, to even like post little videos on TikTok. I never found myself needing that. I should say, if I want to grow more, of course, I can always post on TikTok. But right now, I'm like pretty happy with my growth. But in the beginning, I would just say spread yourself as far as you can on social media and just get your brand out there and get people familiar with it. But when you are maybe 2, 3 years into business, and let's say you have an existing customer base, which is where I'm at now, I've found I don't have to post a feed post for months. And I've actually done this. I think there was one period in the past 6 months, because I became a new mother, I posted on my feed maybe once every 2 months. And honestly, nothing changed. I posted on my stories every single day, and that was driving growth to my social media and still leading to sales. So it's just a matter of where you are in your business journey, I feel like, to determine what you should be doing on social media platforms.
Yeah. Um, I'm curious to know if you could rough estimate, I don't know if you know like the hard numbers on this or anything, in terms of marketing for your business, what percentage would you give to everything in terms of like word of mouth, email marketing, social media? I don't know if you run ads. Like, I'm curious to know, like, where do you find that you are gaining that customer base? Is it local? Is it across the country? Like, how have you been able to grow and build up your customer base up until this point?
I want to say, well, early on, I heavily relied on Instagram. So when I was just starting, I would attribute everything to Instagram, honestly. Like that was my growth. But now that I've built up like that core tiny audience and I diversified marketing more and more every year, I would say where I'm at now is Instagram, because I don't really use any other social media platforms. So I'm going to talk about Instagram.
Mhm.
That's probably giving maybe 10% of my sales right now. Like if I post on Instagram, yeah, it's very minimal. Markets and in-person events, I would even say not even events that I'm formally selling at, even just networking events. Like I recently was invited to a tiny dinner with like 50 people 2 weeks ago in honor of International Women's Day.
Mhm.
And sitting at the table of like 8 girls, I was just telling them my story, and 2 of them became customers. Like they ended up buying from my shop within the next couple days, and I recognized their names. So I would say any in-person event, whether I'm formally selling or not, is honestly like 40 to 50% of my sales. Like those just have the best conversion, and it's the quickest. Like there's something in the online world about how many visits does it take someone to go to your website before they become a customer? And I think the average is like they need to visit your website like 5 times or something before they actually decide to purchase for the very first time. But when I talk to people face to face, they just like they're immediately sold. I mean, I'm not
They
saying
don't
that
need
happens.
5 times.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not saying that happens to everybody I talk to, because if that was the case, I'd be a millionaire, you know. But like, um, when I'm like really, really invested in my story and like talking about it, I feel like half the time they become a customer. So in person about roughly 50%, and then the remaining, so that leaves about 40%. Where's that growth coming from? It's probably spread across just word of mouth, like customer referrals. I feel like there's a handful of people who essentially market for me because they've been such lifelong customers that they tell their friends, they tell their family, they are the ones who are sending my candles as gifts to their family and so on. And then the other half of that is collaborations, which I really, really love collaborations. And I feel like I could talk a lot about this. I
Please
feel
do.
like
Please do. I've never done it before. But is that when there's another mainly like handmade business owner, and then you do almost kind of like a collaboration where you have like a giveaway or something like that, or like how does that work?
so that is like one method of that, which I have experience with. And I think that's really great when you're trying to grow your social media following. Because that kind of seems to be the hack everyone's doing to get a little bit more followers. But really, when I do collaborations, what I mean is it's almost like a combination of private label meets wholesale. I guess like some people would
Okay.
just call this custom orders, but the way I see it and the way I've basically designed it in my business is it's a collaboration candle because and I mean, maybe this is like very greedy of me, but I almost require my business details to be on a custom candle if someone approaches me. So, for example, I'm looking over at my curing rack, and there's an order sitting there for a fertility clinic in my city. And they reached out to me because they are attending an event and they wanted 100 mini candles to just give us samples at this event. Like, not even samples, just like a swag bag item for
Mm-hmm.
their clinic. And the candle has their clinic name on it. It has like some details about them. And it's a beautiful item to remember their business by. But my requirement is it still says TERRA on the label somewhere, and like, pretty large to notice. And in the fine details on the label, it says poured by TERRA, and then it has my website link on there. And it even says like St. Louis, Missouri, because they're a local business. So, it just kind of goes hand in hand. But I feel like that is a big driver to my growth because in the same way of like word of mouth, and they're doing the marketing for me. They're the ones who are distributing these candles for me, almost in the same way, people rely on wholesale for shops to market for you. But I don't know, it's just a very different avenue that I feel like a lot of people don't take advantage of.
Yeah, no, I love that so much. It's almost like you're creating, it's almost like a blend. Yeah, it is like a blend of like wholesale, white label, private label kind of blended together to where you both of your names are on it. They still get their logo and their name and what they want to do with it, but then you still get the branding and marketing aspect of
Yeah.
if somebody is like, I love this scent, I want another one, where can I find it? Versus if your name was nowhere on it, then they're just like, oh, it's just like a one-off thing from the fertility clinic, and then they don't know where to go.
Exactly. And I feel like I've done this for a few different companies who are not shops, like fertility clinics. I've done it with a stuffed animal company. And because they are not the candle company, it's really just a perfect opportunity to still include your information because there's no competition. Like
Mm-hmm.
they know, they're well aware they did not pour this candle, so why not have the space for you as the candle owner to showcase who made it?
So is this kind of because I've done something similar, but I didn't think of it as a collaboration. It's mainly been with like corporate gifting or corporate like where they do like events, like a corporate event or something like that, and there's like prizes, or there's like they're giving away little things for like the attendees and all that kind of stuff. To where I'm like, oh yeah, my name was on it, and then they had their logo. So I guess that is kind of like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
collaboration event.
that's what I would view it as. I mean, maybe I'm just like putting a really nice name to it all, but that's just how I like to view it though, as a collaboration.
Yeah, no, I love it. And it really goes to show now, okay, I know I really want to have you on again, but I heard him.
Me
I know
too.
he's awake. I heard him. Um, So last question, because I definitely want to have you on again. In the candle making world, a lot of people that are getting into it. I feel like there's optimists and more pessimists when it comes to, business in general and any industry that you get into. Do you think that the candle market is oversaturated, and that if you are coming in as a new maker, that there's no market for you and that there's no way that you're able to be successful?
So I can see why someone would think that, because there are lots and lots of candle businesses out there. But I do honestly think there is space. I just think there is a uniqueness to every single candle business that's created. And I really believe if you can find what makes you stand out, you will go far with it. When I started, I felt like, I will be honest, I redesigned TERRA, I think 3 times before I finally landed on what it looks like today. And I've kept it for a few years now, so I know it's working.
Has that been
But
hard? Like, because I know you're like, because I've wanted to change ours like a million times, and Chris has always been like, but this is like our brand, and people know. I'm like, I know, but I have like 17 other ideas that I would love to change it to.
yeah, it's really, really tough. But when you know it's working, you really should just leave it alone, or like do small tweaks here and there,
Yeah.
and then eventually get to what maybe you're trying to go for. But I think if you can find that uniqueness and run with it, and don't be afraid to try out. Like if you think something's not working now, don't be afraid to change it up. Get different jars, get a different design, get a different logo, like, really switch it up and figure it out. But I think you can make your mark, and you will, like, if you're determined enough, you just will make your space in this industry.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing too, is that like, with starting your own business, like it's sometimes there's luck that plays into it. Sometimes there's things that are out of your control. Like everybody is going to have a different experience with their business. Probably a zillion different combination of different things of the personality of the person, what brand name, what they choose to do, the sense, like how they choose to go about everything. So I just wanted your take on that, because that's the question I get all the time. And people are always like, oh, there's nowhere, like, but there's so much, just like when you were saying the collaboration, like nobody's thinking like, oh yeah, I'm going to sell candles and like work hand in hand with a fertility clinic. Like that's just not usually something that people think about. So I love that you brought on different ways of thinking, and that's what I try to do on the channel all the time, is like just think outside of the box. And if you can think
Yeah.
outside of the box, sometimes like you're going to really go a lot farther than somebody who is just kind of stuck in their ways of like, I'm just going to post on Etsy and then wait for Etsy to bring me sales. Like it's not the same way it was like 15 years ago, where that may have
Yeah.
worked at the time, but it's like constantly adjusting and changing to the changing world that's going on.
Yeah.
But I'm going to let you have the last word of where can people find you. You can have your Instagram and all that stuff, your website. I'll also leave it down below for people to check out. Also, everybody needs to check out Inventora. I've talked about Inventora so many times on my channel. If you are a maker, you need to get Inventora and use it for your business, because you will thank yourself for not being super disorganized like I was in the very beginning until you reached out to me.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for spotlighting Inventora, because I really am proud of what that has become. And, Jeremy and I work really, really hard on it. But that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, we're going to have you on again, because I swear we could probably do like 10 interviews with you and like go into details about so many different things.
Yes, I love it. But as far as where people can find me, you can always find me on Tara's Instagram. I would say I check that every single day, and I try to post on there on my stories every single day. So that's, Instagram.com/Tara simply. And then there's also my personal Instagram, which I kind of do a tiny, tiny bit more behind the scenes with when it comes to business. So if you're interested in that, that's Dianna M. Allen. And I'm just going to throw this out there because it was kind of something that just came to my attention today. I think I'm going to start writing on my Substack again. So if anyone is interested in just like more blog format content, you can also find me over at diannaallen.substack.com.
That's cool. I've never even heard of that before. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
I was writing on it for TERRA when I started because I was trying to document my journey, and TERRA just kind of grew, and I kind of put it on the back burner. And I found it again today, and I said, "Why did I ever stop writing on here?" Because I don't know. I'm a writer. Like I really like to get my thoughts down in like essay format, and yeah, I don't know. I just want to drop my thoughts. So
I
there it
love
is.
that. And you just had so many, I'm like, I want to talk about how writing, how like your skills go into your business. And I just have so many more questions for you, but sadly we do have to end it right now because
Yeah.
I do have to go. I'm sure your
Yeah,
son
I would
may
like
be a
to
late
check on
student.
Justin too.
So we make it work as moms and business owners. I hear him crying right now. All right. Thank you so much, Dianna, for being on today's podcast episode. I had so much fun talking to you, and hopefully we will have you back very, very soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Love talking to you.